and this is a bit I loved as well, try not to hang on every word we say or every press we read or every tweet from across town, obviously referring to other clubs. Your trust and belief in our vision means everything to us, and we hope that you have the faith that there is a well-conceived plan driving every action, utterance and strategic decision. So welcome back to BCFC Royal Blue. And just a few days ago, Birmingham City hosted their third open house, which is an initiative that the Blues have started to introduce to really give fans insights into what's happening around the club for various progressive initiatives and things like that. And that's what we're going to discuss in this podcast. So, Matt, you saw the open house. So what's your takeaways, let's say, from that event?
Yeah, I thought it was good, Dad. The message was growth. So I think there was a lot of expected messages about revenue, about where the club have been, increases, what they want to do next year, those sorts of things. But they touched on areas I wasn't quite expecting, because we heard at the very start from, just referencing my laptop, Jeremy Dale, who was talking about the foundation. Mm-hmm. Garry Cook came on, Nick Smith, Hope Powell, Amy Merricks, who I thought was amazing. Her energy was incredible. And Tom Wagner, we heard from the live stream or from his airplane on the phone as well. So really good wide range of speakers, really wide range of information as well. Some really big announcements, some really small things, but all integral to how we move forward as a club, isn't it?
It made me realise because as fans, our focus is always going to be on the first team. It's always going to be on the results. That will be whether you follow the men's team, the women's team, or either of them. It's all about really what happens on the pitch. But it made me realise when I listened to all the things that were going on around the club, how the owners see this as a whole club thing. You know, it's not just about the men's first team, as we'll get into a little bit of the detail of what they said in relation to other things as well. And it just makes you, appreciate as a club that we feel like, we have a genuine plan to move forward. We know that we're in good hands. And that there's things happening in the background in the club now that are only going to make us bigger and stronger over the next few years. So for all of us, me included, that, get depressed when we have a result that goes against us, when you look at the bigger picture, it's very, very bright and rosy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, where do you want to start, Dad? Because there's so much to talk about. I mean, should we go through kind of like the speakers in order?
I thought that'd be sensible to do that.
I think so.
So you want to talk about the Jeremy Dale and the foundation first?
Yeah, sure. So it started off with loads of football clips, didn't it? And then
Saw those,
entwined with that was a bit from Jeremy Dale. And he talked about the foundation, sort of the work that the club have been doing in the schools and the local community. They mentioned about the sleep. I think it's called the sleep out. Could have got that wrong. I apologise if I do. I think it's called the Sleep Out. And the whole Blue Nose Day. And last year, Punjabi Blues led the initiative around the sleepover in St.Andrews. And it raised 11,000, wow, which was absolutely incredible. And all that went to children in need within the area, in terms of, children who weren't able to get a present that year managed to wake up on Christmas with a present. So a wonderful initiative, really nice way to start the open house, nice message, and hopefully we can raise more money this year and make sure every child in the local area, Birmingham, gets a present at Christmas. Really nice way to start it, I thought.
It really is. It's nice to see the club as well, actually sort of connecting with the community as well, because it's all right to say we're a football club and we want to do this and we want to do that, but there's a real community around the club, and to do initiatives like that, and the foundation, do some fantastic work. I don't think a lot of Blues fans appreciate what they actually do. Mm-hmm. And of course, one of the big things that Tom Wagner and Knighthead said when they bought the club was to ensure that they do these sorts of things with the community. And it's good to see and hear some of this coming into fruition now. So that was very encouraging as well.
And also, over the course of last season, Dad, I've seen loads of clips on social media or photos on social media of Tom Wagner, Tom Brady going into schools in the community. I've seen Ethan Laird. I think I saw Longello last year, going into the communities, handing out coats and jackets and talking to school children as well, talking about what Birmingham City means to the city. And, I think they were kind of like talking a little bit about career advice, about life in general. And that's really nice to see, isn't it? Because when you're young, I know when I was young, footballers were my role models. I really looked up to them. I wanted to be Martin Granger, as we famously say on this podcast, as a left back. So the fact that they're putting their money where their mouth is and going into the local community, I love it. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, trying to make a difference. And I think that was a really good start to the open house, wasn't it? And then that was followed on by Garry Cook then.
So he came on and he had a very similar-ish vibe to the previous open houses, and that he was talking only about how broken the club was when he first started and how they've had to make a load of changes. And I've just got a list. I mean, do you want me to just go through the bullet points really quickly, and then we can delve into the more important points, or if I've missed something, Dad? Does that make sense?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
So he acknowledged that mistakes had been made. I thought that was really good. He mentioned about the season tickets and the teething problems we had, and they owned it. I really like that. The fact that they didn't shy away from the problems, they owned it. and that was a real positive for me. The amount of work that went in over the summer, that was a big attribute. He said since Tom Brady had joined, non-contact muscle injuries were down 50%. I thought that was because we often look at Tom Brady, Dad, don't we? And we think about the impact he's having behind the scenes or what his influence might be having. And down 50% is amazing. So they're noticing the players are a lot fitter as well. He mentioned about revenue. He said this year it's up 51%. He's hoping next year it goes up to 78%, especially with the increase in commercial deals.
Yep.
He shouted out to the OSCs. He mentioned about Trevor Francis, the game, the statue, and then he mentioned about the memorial concert, which Jasper Carrot spoke about in more detail. But yeah, I mean, that's, again, a whistle-stop overview. I mean, there's something you want to delve into a little bit more information there.
Well, just a bit. I mean, I think it's important when Garry Cook does. I think we have to continue to be reminded about what things were like before Knighthead came in. We were there as Blues fans, and we lived through it. We know and understand, and it's easy with what's happening at the moment with the players that we've got, with the momentum the club's got, to not to forget it, but to not appreciate it, because you have to have gone through the bad times to appreciate the good times. And I think it's right that Garry Cook reminded us once again of what a really poor state of repair the club was in when they first took over. I liked what he said as well when they're approaching corporate partners, and this term is brilliant. You know, when trying to convince them to invest and be part of the journey, it's not the club that you are. It's not the league that you are. It's the club that you are.
Yeah, I love it.
And I thought that was a brilliant way of really demonstrating that we are a progressive club, and that we are definitely having momentum and going in the right direction. He did talk about us being one of the fastest growing clubs in the country. He also said that we've got the 4th highest average attendance of all the championship clubs, and we have a higher average attendance than 6 Premier League clubs.
Wow.
That's staggering for League One.
That is staggering, isn't it?
You mentioned about the revenue growth, which I'm not going to repeat, but he also talked about social media impressions. And people think, well, why is that such a big issue? He said that we are currently 12th in the country for social media impressions. We were 45th last year. Yeah. And he said that demonstrates growth. Now, why is that important? Because a lot of people think it's social media, but it's about interactions and people talking about the club. It's about the profile of the club. So it's more about sort of demonstrating that Birmingham City is a club that people are talking about, which is exactly where the owners want to be. The revenue is brilliant. He said retail is up 70%.
I know.
70 year on year. What he also did do as well, towards the end of what he said, Garry Cook asked for more support for the women's team. I'd like to get more fans going to watch the women's team, which I think is something.
I think we'll circle back around to that, Dad, when we talk about Hope Powell and Amy Merricks, because they focus a lot on the women's team, and they mentioned about how could we possibly get more numbers in the stadium. So I've got a few ideas and a few things that circled on social media from the fans. So we'll come back around to that. Interesting point as well.
Just one final point on Garry Cook as well, which links to what you were talking about, the community as well, and Trevor Francis. So the event on the 27th of March at the Symphony Hall I think it's about 2,000 tickets. They're already available to season ticket holders. What he said, which I thought was really, really great, was funds for that will go to begin the Trevor Francis Memorial Schools Football Cup with the new trophy and the final played at St.Andrews. So that is going to engage the community of clubs around Birmingham and the West Midlands to interact with that cup as well. So that's another good initiative. I thought that was brilliant as well.
Fantastic, wasn't it? And I like Garry Cook. He's a good speaker, isn't he? You can tell he's the CEO. He holds that sort of level of authority. He's a good speaker. He seems very confident. He knows what he's talking about. He's very experienced, isn't he? He went through this with Man City. Yeah. That massive transformation. Yeah. And I quite like listening to Garry Cook. I think he's quite a... for someone who looks a bit funky, he's quite charismatic, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? Like, he's got
does he look funky?
He's got the grey swirly hair. He doesn't look like he would have any charisma, in my opinion. But when he starts talking, he's actually all right. And I was quite impressed. And then next we moved on to Nick Smith, Dad. I love this guy. I think he's absolutely fantastic. And he's always popping up on the Blue social media talking about, the bar to bar or the fan zones or the improvements that have been going on around the stadium. So I've kept quite a close eye on him over the season. And he's got a massive involvement with the club now. He oversees Wast Hills. He oversees the Knighthead development training pitch. He oversees St.Andrews. He's going to have a massive impact in the development of the new stadium and the village and what that entails. So again, I've got a few bullet points, Dad, and you can jump off the back of that if you like. So he reiterated the work that went on over the summer around the stadium and the surrounding areas. He talked about Wast Hills. He talked about the Epic Centre, and he talked about the fire. That they gutted the place. Basically started from fresh. And he was talking about all the new facilities and what's going on around there. Yeah, he said everything's been rebuilt. It's also a base now for the women's team and for the academies. And he said, new changing rooms, lounges, education centres, workshop rooms, kitchens, eateries. So it sounds like they're taking all these responsibilities very seriously, aren't they? Because as you said, Dad, at Birmingham City at the moment, it's not just about the men's first team. It's about the academy. It's about the women. And it looks like, again, they're putting their money where their mouth is, and they're really putting the best facilities that they can in for the entire squad and team and everyone involved. So that's brilliant to see as well. He showed the pitch for the match day and also training pitches. And he said around the training ground, there'll be a new stand on the show pitch as well. So a little bit more of a comfortable experience for people that want to go see the women's team or the academies maybe down at the training ground. And he said about safeguarding as well. Because, apparently at Wastills, you could just turn up basically and put your car in the car park and kind of wait. And I remember in the old transfer days, the rumours used to run wild because people would just be out at the front, taking photos of people. But he said safeguarding is now a big priority for the club, better security in place. And all these things. And I think Nick Smith is a really good talker. He's a very intelligent man, and I love what he's doing with the club. It's fantastic.
Yeah, big part of the club now. He's, as all the points you've mentioned in terms of what they did or what's been done through him leading the sort of the infrastructure part of the club. Taught very well, as you said. 47 projects over the summer, £15 million spent investment, and obviously then he went through all those projects you talked about. He also mentioned that the fan park will be ready for the start of the Stockport game. I think it's on the 4th of December, so that's finished now. There's a roof on that, etc. The Wast Hills, as you referred to, is now referred to Knighthead Performance Centre. It is Wast Hills, but it's just changed name as well. You talked about the previous lack of investment, and I think that's what cost us our Category 1 status originally.
No doubt.
That's all changed now. But they, as you said, took the opportunity to reimagine it as well. All those things brilliant. Obviously, they've revamped the whole thing for the academy and the women's team, so it's completely different with all the facilities you said. They've designed and developed and built a new 900-metre square modular building attached to the existing building. That houses a lot of facilities that you've mentioned. That's staggering, really.
It is.
New women's meeting rooms, lounges, all the stuff you mentioned. New parents' lounges as well.
Yeah, that's good.
Part of us, we'll talk about in a minute when we come to the academy bit, is to make sure you've got various facilities in place. So there's parent lounges, media preparation areas. I mean, it's quite staggering, really, the amount that's done. You mentioned all the investment as well in these buildings, but also £4 million being spent on artificial pitches, new lighting, hybrid pitches, that 250-seat grandstand that you talked about as well. I mean, it's staggering. We're talking about these things. These have been done at Birmingham City, at our training ground. So most people won't even see these. This is just for the players. The people go along to the women's training ground and the academy and all that type of thing. The vast majority of Blues fans are not going to see this, but they've put this behind the scenes to enhance,
I tell you what's a good visual representation, Dad, of what the differences will look like. There was a press conference once, and it was Monk. This was like, however many years ago. And then there was the picture of the press conference with Tony Mowbray, Rooney, and basically the improvements of the press box, which they'd done since Knighthead took over. It was... I mean, you've all seen it. You've all seen the press box where Chris Davies does his interviews now. Like, it's absolutely staggering. But that's the difference. They're taking little signs with blue tack and sticker on and making it this Sky Sports newsroom, But that's what they're doing all over the club, the training grounds, the stadiums, everything they're doing is that small detail, but it makes a humongous difference.
Well, we've all seen the improvements at the stadium. Anybody that's been down to St.Andrews for a match, if you're a season ticket holder or you've just been down occasionally, it's night and day compared to what it was. And the good news as well, to finish on Nick Smith, is that he's going to be overseeing the work for the new sports quarter as well. So as this moves forward, it's going to be him. So that's good news. He's in good hands. So good stuff. And it's always glad to hear from him as well.
Yeah, he's a good guy, isn't he? Seems like he's really got his finger on the pulse. And
and then that was followed on by Hope Powell. Should I do a quick overview of what she did? She was impressive as well, and she was always going to be because of she's an icon in women's football.
Former England manager,
and to be part of the Birmingham City women's setup is absolutely staggering. She says we want to be known in women's football as a progressive club. Well, I suppose that doesn't just relate to women's football. That's men's as well. But we want to be known as progressive clubs, and we want a conveyor belt of talent. Of course, that's the thing you talked about, which I thought was really interesting because I know Birmingham City Women's from my memory have been a real top class women's team. And it was actually quite sad to see the deterioration. So she talked about, Birmingham City Women being one of the founder members of the original WSL and Women FA Cup winners in 2012. And then after that, the club started to go into decline through lack of investment and all the things that we know about, and it was just going in the wrong direction. To a point, and if you remember, this is going back a few years, that our players at the time wrote open letters to the club complaining about the lack of facilities and lack of support, and that was supported by many other women's clubs around the country. And then we suddenly move into the summer of 2023 when Knighthead take over, and it's a complete reverse. It's a complete revival. Tom Wagner, right from the very beginning, stated his commitment to the Birmingham Women's Club. Wanted to be a real, and he said he wanted to be a real powerhouse for both men and women's football, and that's really, really encouraging as well. And he sees real potential growth in the women's game in this country, because he obviously sees what's happening in America as well. And all the investment, what Powell said, that's now gone into the women's team gives no excuse for people for the current players that are there, and also for attracting talent from other clubs as well. And they're already striving to be WSL ready already. Yeah. They've already got that mindset that that's how they run the club, as a WSL club. So they're currently operating as a WSL club. So very impressive from Hope Powell.
And what I liked about that was that she was talking about the values of the women's team and Tom Wagner, and aligning that with the values of Knighthead and the vision of the club in the future. So she was saying basically that they're focusing just as much on the women's team as they are on the men's team, and they're putting all the money in the facilities, they're putting all the backing into the women's team to get us on a level playing field contextually with the men. And I love that, and that was really nice. And she was talking about the progression of her role as well, which I thought was quite interesting. And she was talking about the difference, like you said, the difference in the facilities under BSHL and what it's like under Wagner now, making sure, again, we're all sort of on the same page moving forward. And then she spoke about the praise of the youth system as well, which I thought was really good. And she spoke about in the women's pyramid, she wants younger players for Birmingham City to be representing England again. Coming back to your thing, that about the WSL and Birmingham having a really key part in that years ago, she wants that to come back and to get as many England internationals as she possibly can at Birmingham City. I thought that was great to hear as well. And then, of course, the attendances for the women's game. Again, because it's Hope Powell and the next one's Amy Merricks. I don't really want to talk about that now, Dad, or after we discuss it. But there was a big focus on attendances, weren't there, for the women's game, and how can we up those numbers? And just to gauge what I've been talking about on social media, Dad, and I'll bounce it off you and see what you think. A lot of people have been saying about aligning it with the men's game. So let's say the men kick off at 3:00, either having the game at 11 a.m. or 6 p.m, whenever the appropriate time would be afterwards. So then either you can watch the women's game, stay and watch the men's, or you can watch the men's and stay and watch the women's. So basically, a lot of people are saying they don't have the spare time to do 2 different trips in a week to watch the women's and the men's. But if you put them together somehow on the same day, that would spark a lot more interest. It's a difficult one. It is a difficult one, because people only have a certain amount of time in the week. Going to the football's expensive now. Again, if you have to do 2 trips, that's double the price, all these different things. So interesting to get your thoughts, Dad. What are your thoughts on improving the numbers for the women's game?
Well, I think that's a good idea. I mean, there are obviously logistical issues in doing that, because the stadium would be open for much more many hours.
And the grass.
And then you've got the issue of security policing. Mind you, the pitch, it could easily cope with one game after another. They're not like the pitches that they used to be, but it would take various thoughts to make it work. But it's just, if you go to a men's game and then that finishes, so you would have been there for or obviously watching that game, and then there would have to be a gap. You obviously couldn't just happen straight away, could it? And then the logistics of changing the changing rooms over, because obviously there's only so many changing rooms. So I don't think it's as straightforward as that. But I can see the thoughts behind it. So I think things like that would make at least the club could think about maybe doing that type of thing. But I mean, there's various initiatives that the club, I'm sure, will do to try and promote the women's game as well. But that's an interesting one.
Definitely. And that ties it in nicely, Dad, to our next one, which is Amy Merricks. Do you want to start with that, or do you want me to?
Just an overview. Just very impressive.
Yeah, amazing, wasn't she? She was the star of the night, I think.
Really impressive. She was talking about statistics and tactics, and I thought, that she's obviously, it's almost like a female version of Chris Davies in terms of tactically showing all of. I'm wondering as well, since she's showing all the tactics, I thought the opposition are watching that. but
someone did comment, Dad, sorry to interject, but it is quite relevant and funny. Someone said Rooney did all this about the tactics and stuff, and then someone was like, I'm a lot more optimistic about Amy Merricks than I was than I am Rooney. But it was that whole thing when he spoke at his open house. He had the stats up and the quite impressive to listen to. But people like, no, Amy seems the real deal, don't you?
She does. I mean, she's talking about, last season where 78% of our goals were conceded last season in the second half. Now we have the best defensive record in the league. Congratulations to the women's team as we at time of recording, top of the league, top of the championship. Level on points, I think, with Durham after today's results. So it's tight, but they're still top. It is tight at that top, but in the position we'd want to be in. We've also scored the most goals. Well, we had at the time of the open house. That could have changed because Birmingham City women didn't have a game this game week, and obviously the other teams did. But we were and are right up there with the top scorers. So yeah, really, really impressive with the way that she will be taking this club forward. And there's some good profiles on different players as well. And I found it really, really fascinating, to be honest.
I think she was the star of the show, Dad. Just her enthusiasm, her passion. She just had that education, that knowledge, that passion. I mean, those things combined. It's impressive to listen to those sorts of people, isn't it? And, again, that was my highlight for her, that passion. Her demeanour was just really good. But she's a well-renowned coach now at Brighton. It was interesting to hear about how she went through the ranks and how she's now obviously got that good reputation, all those different things. And then, as I say, for me, the key was that statistical analysis. I thought that was absolutely incredible. And one time her slide didn't work, and she just carried on talking. Like, she was like, don't need it. I can just
they kept showing the same thing.
Well, yeah. But like,
it was interesting. But it was that good. We'll show it twice, and then it came on again.
But the fact she could carry on going, she didn't need the slides really. Again, was quite impressive.
Interestingly, because I think Hope Powell was at Brighton as well. I think Hope Powell brought her to Birmingham City. So I think she's a really, really good, signing for the club, and I think she will really take the club, the women's team, where they need to be.
Absolutely, Dad. So that brings on to our Tom Wagner, who joined us on a call from his plane on over the internet. So do you want to go talk a little bit about?
Was it Mike Rigg first? Was it? Or...
Oh, sorry, Mike Rigg.
Yeah.
Mike Rigg. Sorry.
I'm always fascinated when I hear him as well. He's the guy that's came over to manage and lead our academy, and he said some things that are just really sort of eye-opening. Really, he also talked about the state of the club and what we needed to do, because obviously the whole focus is on Cat 1, Category 1 academy, which means different things. What he said was, we've got our audit, which will be later this year, or in December or January. Yeah, it's almost like he likened it to like an Ofsted visit. And I know all about that, being education. And if we get that, then we'll get a provisional license for 12 months, and then get another visit. And eventually, if it goes the way we want it, we'll get a 3-year license to become an academy. But he talked about the things behind that, which I felt fascinating in terms of the way that they've changed the academy in terms of what they've done. All that stuff you talked about, those facilities, a lot of that is geared towards Cat 1 status as well. All the rooms and support and psychology. But one thing that really stood out for me, which I really took from it. He talked about the journey of a young player, and that.
I love this.
And that realistically, few will actually make it to the very, very top. He said some we will make good players. They will make it into our team. Some they'll make it. We'll make it somewhere else, and we'll sell them and stuff like that. We'll make money, capital, didn't he? But he also talked about those who didn't make it, and that's part of your Cat 1 status. You have to demonstrate that you're providing these young people with other skills apart from football. He talked about education, psychology, making sure that they've got professional skills or transferable skills. And I really love that. I thought that's so nice to think that these young players are not just going, you're not good enough now, go off into the world and what do I do next? Now, to be Cat 1, part of that, I think you have to show a journey. Well, what are you doing with these people, so that what support are you providing for them, and what the club are doing is absolutely fabulous. So I found that fascinating. I was really, really encouraged to hear that as well.
Also, Dad, if you're Jude Bellingham, James Maddison, Jack Grealish, these players that do make it through the academy systems, all it takes is one bad injury. That's all it takes for you to end your career. I don't say that lightly. All it takes is that, and then you're back out in the world again, doesn't it? So it's nice that they're focusing on developing, other skills along with the football. And I remember when I was a kid, Dad, I was quite close to the academy system. I had a couple of friends in the academy system, and I knew quite a lot about it. And there was a focus, but it wasn't like a big thing back then anyway. So it's nice to know that they're really focusing on getting the players world ready. And also as well, with football comes pressure. It's a big lifestyle change, isn't it? You're suddenly then playing in front of 30,000 people. How do you deal with social media? Is constant now. How do you deal with the criticism on social media? It's a different world.
Well,
the fact they're preparing them.
In the academy, Matt, as well, they actually get media training as well.
Brilliant.
They get training to how to deal with the media and how. So it's all about your lifestyle, and it's fantastic. In fact, actually, being part of the academy is even if you don't make it, the skills that you have will enable you to do something else, will take your life in a different direction. I think that's so important as well.
Yeah.
But one interesting thing was he did get asked a question, I think, in the Q&A about, well, surely the way Birmingham City have invested all this money, doesn't that make it harder at the moment for an academy player to get into the squad? How's an academy player going to break through into that current squad? And he admitted, he says, yeah, it is. It is really, really difficult.
But that's what separates the wolves from the sheep, isn't it? If you're going to be a world-class player, Jude Bellingham would break into this team.
Yeah.
James Maddison would break into this team. Those players who have that Premier League ability will still break into the team. It's a good question, though, because what if you have someone who's on the periphery? Maybe they've got a little bit of confidence that's needed. Maybe they just need a bit more developing, a bit more game time. It's a very good question.
No, I think the question was raised on the basis that possibly if we hadn't made all that investment this summer and had like a very similar team to what we had last season, there'd be more opportunity for young players to come in, because the players, with respect, at that time weren't at the level that these players are at, and therefore there's more gaps in the squad. However, with bringing all these players in, it does create that extra barrier. And I think what he was basically saying is it's going to take a little bit of time for the academy system to actually work and filter through. But eventually, it will presumably start to start to produce some fruits.
Because if you look over the last few years, George Hall has had quite a bit of game time. Obviously, last year was his injury. Even Donovan got on the pitch a few times last season, so it just shows that now those players are out on loan. They can't even get near the team. So I'm backing up your point that it's even more challenging now for younger players to get into the squad.
Well, the only player at the moment that's from the academy that's actually in the first team is Brandon Keelan. He's only had five games this season, or 5-game contributions. So it does show there's a gap. But then that's the balance. This difficulty is what do we do? Do we say no? Let's not invest in the squad and we'll just wait for our young players to come through? That takes time, and obviously Knighthead and and the owners are in a hurry to get to where we need to be. So I think it'll eventually settle down. But what's very interesting because it says that not all of these players are going to make it to the Birmingham City first team.
I think that's fair. That's realistic.
But we could, we'll be able to, by Cat 1 status as well, be able to protect our players and keep them rather than lose them to other local teams as well. So the academy is in really, really good hands, and really nice to hear what Mike had to say and what they've done and what they're continuing to do. And it'd be great when we get confirmation with Cat 1, because if we're Cat 1 status, it allows us to compete with the very best, attract the best players, which we can't do at the moment because we're not there. But I'm sure from what was said, I'm pretty confident with him at the helm and where the club are investing, we'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings us on to the star. Oh, I say the star of the show. I say star in the context of some of the information in which was shared. So I think you'll possibly express this with a bit more passion than me. That's Tom Wagner. Floor's over to you. What do you think of Tom Wagner's bit?
Well, he only had a very short period of time, didn't he? And he was on an aeroplane as well. So I think Tom Ross, who was hosting the event, said that he wanted to find a way to join, and he did. And you could tell he was on the plane. He didn't know really what was going on at the beginning. But one thing that kept coming out for me that he said, I think on 3 occasions, is the commitment that Knighthead have got to this.
Unwavering.
Unwavering. He said the commitment to building a new stadium and a sports quarter remains unwavering. And that, again, just tells us as Blues fans, if you're worried about the club, calm down. You're in good hands. They're going to do what they've got to do. A few other things he said as well, which I think is very encouraging as well. And I will quote directly from what he said. We are deeply... and I emphasise the word deeply, we are deeply involved in complex planning and negotiations that will lay the groundwork for the development of the sports quarter. Our heads are down and we remain, again, fully committed to doing the work needed to make this vision a reality. While we're not yet at the point where we can share every detail, that we are making progress. Our commitment remains, again, unwavering, and we ask for your continued confidence as we navigate the process. And this is a bit I loved as well. Try not to hang on every word we say or every press we read or every tweet from across town, obviously referring to other clubs. Your trust and belief in our vision means everything to us, and we hope that you have the faith that there is a well-conceived plan driving every action, utterance, and strategic decision. I think what he was saying there, when he said,
Brilliant.
Try not to hang on
I've got goosebumps, Dad.
I know. What he says is always encouraging, isn't it? But try not to hang on every word we say. So I think what he's basically trying to let us know in a roundabout way is that we're going to hear things in the press that might initially not appear to be,
Yeah.
like when there was a lot of negativity from other people, not from the club or not from our fans, when he went to that meeting at Birmingham City Council, and
Yeah. People thought he was backtracking, didn't they?
yeah, everybody thought
Those friends across the channel, across the road.
I wish it was a channel. Which might across the road, but when all he was doing, he was lobbying local government and national government actually through that process, trying to get support for it. And then when he was talking about we need better planning and better infrastructure, people interpreted that as, oh, we're not going to do it because it's not good enough. But I think what he's saying in that statement, don't worry when things like this come out, we're just pressing ahead and trying to do what we want to do. Yeah. But I was very encouraged by that. Just those few minutes and seeing him and hearing him and his commitment to what the plan and the project was absolutely important, wasn't it?
Okay. Yeah. And I think I can't really add any more there without wasting unnecessary airtime. That was what you just said. It gave me goosebumps when he said it. It gave me goosebumps when you just reread it out as well. It just shows his passion. He loves the Blues. He's always got us as a fan base, hasn't he? I feel like he's always understood us as a fan base, and to hear those words was great. And people lose their minds every time anything comes out about this stadium in the official channels. Not Blues, not us. I mean, we do, but we do it in a positive, ecstatic way. Other people lose their minds in a negative, let's jump on their back kind of way. And I'm not going to go any further detail. Everyone knows exactly what I'm talking about. But unwavering support, and I think exactly what you said, Dad. He has to play the game. He has to play the political game. He's got important people to talk to. He's got a lot of money at stake. He has to sometimes say things that might be a little bit controversial or might seem a little bit negative. It's not. He's just lobbying, maybe. He's just, as I said, putting pressure on councils, putting pressure on the government, whatever it might be. So that was really nice to hear. And yeah, as we say, unwavering commitment, I think, is borderline one of the best ways to end this podcast.
It's brilliant, isn't it? Garry Cook, I don't know if it was in the open house, but I read somewhere that he'd said, the sports quarter, it's not like putting an extension up at the back of your arm. It's mind-blowing stuff that we're doing here. So there is a process involved, and there's lots of things that need to happen, and lots of decisions that need to be made, lots of funding and planning and all the type of things that we all know about. But that does take time. And the encouraging thing from what Tom said is that we are in that process now. So it was great. But overall, I felt that once again the open house was brilliant. It gives us fans, as Garry Cook described, a look behind the curtains to see what's going on, and help us. Hopefully, Blues fans make you realise that what's going on at the club is far wider than just the result we get for every individual game. They're important to us as fans, of course they are. We hang on the results and follow the team. In every single game, but actually this is much wider than that, and love to know what your thoughts are. The plan that the club appear to have for us appears to be well in progress now, and we just all we've got to do now as Birmingham City supporters is continue to get behind it and give the support that the club actually needs. I'm sure we will, but love to know your thoughts and comments, so please pop a comment below. So Matt, before we finish, any final comments?
No, just I think that was a great way to end it with Wagner talking about the stadium, about the future developments. Really good variety of speakers this time. Great to hear about the women's team. Great to hear about the developments from Nick in terms of the stadium. And, the foundation, Garry Cook, all those things. So, yeah, for me, a great open house. And we move on to our next game against Shrewsbury. God, it's been so, because I've been poorly in the international break. It's been so long I've lost track. We move on to our next game against Shrewsbury. And exciting times.
It is exciting times, isn't it? And some of the stuff that we've heard in the open houses and over the last since Knighthead have been there, really have been unbelievable, really, for us as Blues fans. I think these open houses only help us to really appreciate really the hard work that's going on behind the scenes. So once again, a fantastic open house. But like I said, give us your comments below. Let us know your thoughts on anything that you heard or maybe noticed in the open house, maybe we haven't covered, and just give us your general comments below. As always, if you did like this podcast, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, and if you haven't checked us out already on our social media channels, pop along to our X page and our Instagram page, and if you like to watch your podcast or listen to your podcasts on Spotify, you'll also find us there now, and you'll see the handles appearing for all these channels on the screen right now. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to our channel already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and if you want to have notifications, you can not hit the bell icon next to the subscribe button, and you'll get notified every time myself and Matt put out a new podcast. And as always, myself and Matt look forward to seeing you all on the next podcast, all about Birmingham City.